A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
A controversy that's been brewing in the state of Queensland. Earlier this week, we were talking about the trans-driven Supreme Court challenge to the Queensland government banning puberty blockers. Well, we were anticipating what the court might do, and the court ruled against the Queensland government's move. And now there's an even bigger development. We'll monitor these things along. With the Queensland government has now reinstated that ban. It took the health minister just 6 hours, and he used his ministerial powers to continue what we might see as protection of children. Checking in with the Australian Christian Lobby once again, Rob Norman is the ACL State Director in Queensland. He's back with us. Hey Rob, special welcome back to 2020.
Good to be back, Neil, on the back of Monday's chat. And yeah, there's great developments that have happened since then.
It was an important conversation on Monday, and this conversation now just giving us a little clarity, and I'm even going to ask you to speculate as we get this conversation underway, just to capture your heartbeat and what's going on in the Australian Christian Lobby as to how these things are developing, because right now all eyes are going to be on the state of Queensland because so many parents have been so concerned about their ability to be a parent and not have their children taken away in some strange circumstances. But Rob, just quickly as we get into our conversation, the Queensland government's showing some real backbone here. That's a little bit of a change for some of our governments around these issues.
Yeah, it's pleasing to see, Neil. We've certainly experienced the highs and lows over the last couple of days since we spoke. But in summary, what happened is that the first ban that was enacted, I guess through the Health Act, was procedurally flawed, and so basically it worked through the bureaucracy. It happened that Queensland Health imposed the ban, and in terms of process, there should have been consultation and discussion, etc., before that ban was actually enacted. So many of the media outlets, or not many, but at least a couple of them, highlighted this as being a landmark decision, that the first ban was overturned. It was nothing of the sort. So it was not a landmark decision. What it was the correction of a procedural error, and it's very pleasing to see that the minister has intervened, and he's pretty much imposed a bulletproof ban that should carry us now through to the end of November.
Okay, a procedural issue here, not a landmark decision, because, hey, we like the fact that our democracy has a strength in its separation of powers, and we do want politicians to be accountable, but here you have just a procedural issue here, and that was the reason why the Supreme Court overturned where the government was standing. Hey, 6 hours, and the health minister uses some powers to say, well, it's only a procedural issue. Let's get that ban back in place. How were you feeling when that announcement came?
Yeah, look, I was hoping that would be the case. You're always, praying and crossing your fingers and whatever, but at the end, has intervened. I think that was always part of his plan. He had a plan B, if you like, in the case that the ban was overturned. And so what he's done, he's issued a ministerial directive. This is quite a different situation to the first ban. It's very robust. It's both lawful and necessary. So he's reinforced the view of the state that says that there needs to be a review of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and of course that review has well and truly started. It's into the mature stages now, and we're expecting the report to be tabled on the 30th of November. So this has brought us back to where we were, Neil, in a very timely fashion. And yeah, look, the minister has done the right thing. We commend him. It is a brave move. It's politically smart, I think, to do that as well, because 75% or more of the population agree with what the minister has done.
So the findings of that review, 30th of November, so we're a month away between now and then. And that's a time when everything could change again. So this is an ongoing, fluid situation. And as we're seeing, it's going one side to the other. How are your predictions here around where you think that review might land? I think I was asking you on Monday what you thought of those who were on the review panel. What are your thoughts about November 30 and beyond?
Yeah, we are optimistic, Neil. I think the review panel looks like a very robust team. We can't guarantee that, of course. Nothing is guaranteed. What I did say Monday, and I stand by today as well, is that the turning point has happened. Gender dysphoria, the whole regime of drug intervention, and ultimately, the young people being subjected to this irreversible change, it has turned. The tide has turned. We're going to see some back and forth. We're probably going to have some small losses. We're probably going to have some, hopefully, larger wins. But there's no doubt that the tide has turned, and this is part of that process. Again, we're very hopeful that Queensland will lead the way and that the rest of Australia will follow suit. And so that's my prediction, Neil. I'm going to stick by it. I can't give you a timeline on it. I think, at the end of the day, these things work themselves out as they work themselves out. But there is an urgency in this, and the 30th of November marks yet another turning point.
Very important that there is a review that's going on in the state of Queensland because there's been international reviews that have caused a change of direction around the world. The CAS review, and that came out of the UK, I'm pretty sure. The CAS review, would you be expecting that the Queensland review would come up with basically the same sorts of things? If there's science and these things are important in all of this, you might expect a similar outcome. What are your thoughts? Yeah,
look, Neil, I think it would be a very brave review panel that pushed back against the CAS review. So that was a very robust review. And basically what Dr. Hilary Cass found was that there were massive gaps in the evidence. She flagged long-term risks and irreversible consequences of the use of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. There's a whole lot of issues that come into play there. At the end of the day, when you think about puberty, young boys become men, young girls become women. There's a brain development situation that takes place. There are all sorts of effects that the hormones have on brain development, on bone health, fertility, even psychosexual maturation. So young people are growing up into adulthood, and Dr. Cass highlighted those. She also said that there is absolutely no guarantee, and it's unproven, whether these hormones are reversible. Now, of course, that's in direct contrast to what the activists are telling us. And so they're rushing gung-ho into this and telling us that everything's hunky-dory, cross-sex hormones can be reversed. It's not that big a deal. The Cass review proved that that was definitely not the case, and it certainly raised some serious question marks.
How do you think parents might be feeling right now in the state of Queensland? And I'm very mindful that there are parents in other states and territories who'll be listening to our conversation now where things are tenuous when they've got a child who may be at risk of being taken away, steamrolled by a trans initiative here, and having children put onto puberty blockers and sex hormones without even their consultation. But how do you think parents in Queensland might be feeling? Perhaps a little bit of relief that there's some protections for them, at least until this new review comes out?
Absolutely. And that's the very reason the ban was imposed, because of the reports of children beginning a transitioning process without their parents' knowledge. We know that that's happening in other states as well. In Queensland, it was happening. In Victoria, it's happening. Very hard for parents to intervene into the process. Legislation's getting tougher and tougher. And this, if we end up seeing the ban upheld permanently, would be a massive win for parental rights. And look, I think we've got a little bit of breathing space for the next month at least.
Tim Nicholls is the Health Minister in Queensland. Right now, how do you think he'd be feeling? Because he's going really well and truly against the current. He's going against the tide of where other health ministers have gone. No doubt he's got some support within the Queensland government. But any thoughts on this courageous move that he's made? The way that you might even be, some way a sideline cheerleader for good decisions like this. What are your thoughts about him?
Yeah, he's certainly coming under it, Neil. The activists, as we said on Monday, they never sleep. And so there's a constant barrage of emails that the Minister's office would be receiving, I'm sure. I'm sure that's the case. I know that we advocate on issues that we're concerned about. Our opposition are advocating on this very thing at the moment. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And so hats off, tilt of the hat to the Minister. I think he's done the right thing. There was really no other decision to make, in my opinion, but God bless him. We should be praying for him. I hope that this thing continues. I believe it will. I think we've only got a month now, but the Minister's done a good job. We shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves. It's not an outstanding thing. This is the right decision. It's as simple as that. And I guess the other thing is that the Minister would have the support of the grassroots of the LNP itself. There are a number of Conservatives within the LNP that would be cheering on this decision, I'm sure.
Hey, just a little dimension. I don't know whether it comes up too much in conversation, but not just the health minister, who perhaps needs some level of accolade here for showing some real backbone, but as I understand it, the ambulance services were also in there and standing for what the minister was saying. Any thoughts there for the ambos?
Look, the AMBOs, Neil, they are the absolute champions of frontline medicine. They're the first to arrive in crises. We know that's the case with drug overdose, etc. But when young people are in distress, the AMBOs are the first people there. And so, yes, I think they would certainly be happy with this decision. We're going to hear the narrative come out of the activists that this now places young people's lives in danger, and they're referring to possible suicide, etc. Again, that is a very speculative and a very subjective claim. There really is no great evidence around that. In fact, the evidence probably could be stacked equally in the opposite direction. The children who begin the transitioning process and then are remorseful and try to detransition, there is a real problem there of psychological problems. So the debate will get bigger and bigger, Neil, as we go down the road.
There are some important things, as you remind us, Rob, to remember as this debate continues to get traction. And no doubt we'll hear a lot about this over the coming month in the anticipation of this review. And perhaps if that review goes along the same lines of the Cass review, as much publicity as it can glean, the better. But the issue here, this is the issue, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones for minors, the irreversible damage that does to a child, and no parental consultation, parents feeling robbed of their own children. This is the issue here at hand, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. This is both a moral and a medical issue. It really is. And people will try and argue that it's non-ideological, that it's purely medical, but that is nonsense. At the end of the day, this is an ideological issue at its core, and it has medical implications. And so we have to really stick to this. I would call your audience to be involved, perhaps contact the Minister's office, thank him for what he's done, for the decision that's been made, encourage him in the way ahead, because this really is important. There'll be further big decisions to make, obviously, after the 30th of November. And that, either way, will be a landmark decision. And there is absolutely no doubt that this Queensland decision will affect the rate at which the turning of the tide happens around the nation.
Have you heard if the government would be doing some level of appeal on that Supreme Court decision before the 30th of November? Or is it, because it's a procedural issue, do you think, not important enough to need to rush through another court process here? But any thoughts there? I mean, the courts become a battlefield for these things, and where there are opportunities for appeal, would the Queensland government, do you think, by any necessity, need to make an appeal here?
I would be surprised if they did. I think it's probably best to let sleeping dogs lie. Now, I have that, the way it will. I guess the only downside of leaving it lay as it is that taxpayer dollars have been spent on defending the government's case. And so in the overturning of the ban, the case that happened this week, the government was ordered to pay expenses. So that would be, to me, that's a minor thing. I know it sounds trivial, like I'm making something out of nothing. It really is a minor thing. I don't believe the government will appeal this. I don't even think it would be wise to do that. I think all eyes should be now on the future.
All eyes too on the state of Queensland. No doubt from every other state and territory around Australia, they have all grappled and battled and even succumbed to the activism because of an ideological bent here. And so a little bit of backbone, and if the Queensland government can hold firm and not back down and win this, that'll be a win for all Australians, won't it? Because there'll be some level of precedent in another state, and it'll be very hard to justify what other states and territories are doing if this comes through in Queensland.
Yeah, I mean, it really, what this will do now, Neil, hoping for the best and praying for the best, obviously, with a good outcome, this will bring us into line with what's happening around the globe. So it'll align us with the US, other countries in Europe, Italy that's just coming on board now. These are countries that are beginning to see the effects of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. They've responded to the CAS review. Many of them have implemented their own reviews. Of course, in the US, the Trump administration made big changes very quickly, and likewise. So it doesn't have government you have. You've got the conservative Trump government in the US. You've got the Labor Party in the UK. They've come to the same conclusion. And I think the evidence is that startling, and it really shouldn't matter which brand of politics is driving this. Common sense hopefully will prevail, and that's the way we're viewing it. We think that this is part of that big turning that's happening, Neil.
No doubt we'll be talking about this some more over the next month. Rob Norman, who's the Australian Christian Lobby State Director for the state of Queensland. You can connect with Rob and you can access the resources on the website of the Australian Christian Lobby. It's acl.org.au, acl.org.au. Rob Norman, thank you so much for giving us another update today on 2020.
Appreciate you for having me on. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.